Good morning. I'm Pastor Kim Risedorph, and we're here together to worship God. If you're visiting this morning, welcome. So glad you're here. And if you're looking for a meaningful community and meaningful conversations, we've been expecting you. And we look forward to getting to know you by name. After church in the fellowship hall, there'll be coffee and bagels and conversation. And today, there'll be a bake sale, some sweet stuff from the United Methodist Women. And there'll also be the chance to sign up on many of the opportunities that were on the slides or mentioned in your bulletin. So welcome. I pray that in this hour, we each experience something that reminds us of how very real and near God is. We're in the middle of a sermon series on using our imagination to remember what is possible. Because as human beings, sometimes we get so focused on what is familiar, we cannot yet envision the possibilities that God has planned for us for the future. Case in point is in 1946, just when televisions were beginning to be a thing, and there may be a slide for that. Oh, there isn't a slide for that. Just when televisions were getting to be a thing, a producer at 20th Century Fox Studios made this comment. I'm glad you're sitting down. Television won't last because people will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. Turns out he was wrong. Televisions have lasted, our screens have lasted. We do like looking at them night after night. And I think that's in part because we get captivated by a storyline. We get drawn into the narrative because stories have power. Whether you're watching Friends or Dancing with the Stars or a Warriors game, we get captivated and attached to the storyline and the people involved. Stories have power. So today, we're talking about the power that the stories of our faith have to shape us, to show us who we are in this world. And the centerpiece of our faith story as Christians is the story of Jesus Christ, his teachings, his life, and his resurrection. And so we begin worship by bringing in the light of Christ, a reminder that the risen Christ is here with us. And so as that light travels in, I invite you to prepare your hearts and your minds for worship, to inhale and exhale and allow that light, imagine that light not only traveling into this room, but into our being, so that we go forward to be the light of the Christ's presence in our world. May it be so for us. Thank you. So this morning, we'll continue telling the stories of our faith by reading from the book of Acts. The full title of Acts is The Acts of the Apostles. And the Acts of the Apostles is a collection of stories. So many stories upon stories upon stories that one church historian noted, the church is a story-formed community. Not only the stories of the past, but our stories define who we are as the presence of Christ in this world. And the stories in the book of Acts are meaningful and they're intriguing, but they're more than that. These stories remind us of what the world really is like. And the world really is a place where the presence of God makes a difference. And this story from Acts chapter 12 tells part of that story.
While Peter was kept in prison, the church prayed fervently to God for him. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He tapped Peter on the side and woke him up, saying, "Get up quickly," and the chains fell off his wrists. Then the angel said to him, "Fasten your belt and put on your sandals." He did so. Then he said to him, "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me." Peter went out and followed him. He did not realize that what was happening with the angel's help was real. He thought he was seeing a vision. After they had passed the first and the second guard, they came before the iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went outside and walked along a lane, when suddenly the angel left him. Then Peter came to himself and said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hands of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting."
Thank you. This is a story about freedom, about gaining freedom from the chains, the sadness, and the sin that sometimes keeps us captive. And I was thinking as I read this that so many of the stories of our faith are about freedom. Think of it, from the ancient times, what was God's deepest desire? To deliver the Israelites, to bring them towards freedom, out of slavery in Egypt. And think about King David. Through confession and forgiveness, he was freed from thinking that he could, as king, abuse his power and abuse others. And Zechariah and Elizabeth were freed from hopelessness and barrenness. And Mary, freed from the notion that somehow she wasn't ready or good enough to carry the presence of God inside of her. And Jesus, freed from death. The stories of our faith are stories of freedom. They're the stories that give us the courage to stubbornly resist the notion that life here is inalterable. For the stories of freedom ask us to stand up and claim our freedom, to be the presence of God in this world, and that makes a difference. And that's where we'll pick up the story in a little bit. But now I invite the children to come forward for the children's moment. Please join me in a moment of prayer. Let us fall silent together in the presence of God, knowing we're always in God's presence, and we're willing to become newly aware of it in these moments. Amen. Today we're reading the story of Peter in jail. And Peter is in jail because he didn't stop telling the story of Jesus and his love. He wasn't the only one persecuted for living his faith like that, but he did get put in jail twice. In chapter 5 of Acts and in chapter 12, Peter was put in jail because he kept telling the story of Jesus, his teachings, his death, and his resurrection. So what was the get out of jail free card? It was an angel message leading him boldly towards freedom. Now, I've said this before, but when we talk about angels, we are not necessarily talking about chubby Caucasians flying around overhead. If you do see angels like that, just talk to me after worship and we'll explore that. But angels come to us in all sorts of ways. Angels are infinite and always happening. My favorite definition of angels is angels are God's thoughts coming to us in a way we can understand. And daily life, is filled with angel messages. It's our task to pay attention, to be curious, to notice. Angel can come from a line in a song. It just captures our attention and fills us with peace. It can be a random comment we overhear, or something that a friend says. It can be in art. It can be in the gratitude and wonder of the world around us. God's messages to us are all around, and they call on us to not only live our faith, but they often call on us to try something different, something we have not yet tried before. Case in point is a story of Peter in prison, and he hears this angel, as clear as if the words were spoken, say, "Quick, get up." And when he did, the chains fell off his wrists. Now, personally, I like my angel messages in a slightly different order. If I can imagine myself as Peter, I would much prefer that first the chains fell off, and then I get up. But this order of things, that's so like an angel to pull one like that. To have us affirm our freedom, even though circumstances around us do not yet warrant it. Which leads us to the next question. How do we know it's an angel telling us what to do? It seems to me that's a really important question to ask, because it could be my ego, it could be my self-will, my frustration with current situations that says, let's just get this over with and be free. Angel messages have a different flavor to them. And again, we'll turn to the story and read what comes before, what comes alongside the angel. It was night in that prison cell, and a light appeared. Light is often an indicator of an angel message about to happen. I know that sometimes it's literal, that we see a light that we can't quite explain the source, and we're willing to explore it. It could be a sense of light around us. It could be something that captures our attention and we're willing to be curious. And sometimes the light is more figurative. We just feel light. We feel peace. We feel well-being. And those are usually indicators that an angel is present. Something that not only appears as light, but gives us a lightness, a peace of being. And we're to pay attention to that. Our job in the story of faith is to pay attention to the light and listen to the angel messages. And the good news is there's nothing to stop us from doing that. We have all we need to be attentive to the light and obedient to the angel message. We can, this afternoon, practice noticing all the angel messages that free us from the chains, the sin, and sadness that would keep us captive to fear, anxiety, or hopelessness. And that is what our next piece of music affirms, that Emmanuel, God with us, will free us from whatever chains keep us bound. Amen. So we have this story about Peter that pays attention to the light and pays attention to the angel and finds freedom. And that's easy to do when we're sitting thinking about it, to think that's the way we want to live, paying attention to the light and obeying the angel. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty moments in life, sometimes instead of awareness, we feel anxiety. Instead of focusing on the angel, we feel a bit of frenzy. Have you ever misplaced your car keys? And if you're running late, I've read about people that do this. If you're running late and you've misplaced your car keys, it can be a little bit, there's so many nods going on. I'm not alone. I'm with my people. There's so much frenzy and self-blame and scurrying around, just kind of trying to find them. In those moments, that's when the rubber hits the road, when we begin to think this story might have power in our lives, that we could pause. And, well, here's another story I want to tell you. It's a true story from a book I'm really enjoying, True Refuge, Finding Peace and Freedom in Your Own Awakened Heart. And here's a true story about the magician, Harry Houdini. Near the beginning of his career, the great magician, Harry Houdini, traveled throughout Europe, visiting small towns where he would challenge local jailers to bind him in a straitjacket and lock him in a prison cell. Again and again, he delighted the crowds with his quick escapes from seemingly impossible situations. But in one small Irish village, he ran into trouble. In front of an avid group of townspeople and news reporters, Houdini easily broke free of his straitjacket. Yet, despite his repeated efforts, increasingly frantic efforts, to solve the puzzle of the lock, he failed to open his cell door. After everyone had left, Houdini asked the jailer, "What kind of new lock do you have on this jail cell?" "Oh," the jailer replied, "it's a very ordinary lock. I figured you would have no difficulty opening it, so I never bothered locking it at all." Houdini falsely assumed he was trapped, and his very frantic efforts to free himself had actually locked him in. Sometimes I think we, like Houdini, in our franticness, forget that the door might already be unlocked and the way forward for us as a people, for us as a community, for us as a church might be available to us. How do we do that? How do we access that awareness of the light and the listening to the angel, even in tense or frantic moments? Again, if we go back to the Bible story we read today and mine it even deeper, we find that there is a tangible way to live the way Peter did, noticing the light, listening to the angel, and finding freedom. When Peter was put in jail, the community, the church, prayed fervently for him. It's in asking others for prayers that we are often held in a different type of awareness, a different way of being in the world. And what I notice, and I don't think it's just me, sometimes it's hard to ask for prayers for ourselves. We readily ask for prayers for situations in the world and for people we care about and for people we're aware of. But to ask for prayers for ourselves might be the new frontier in living into faith stories, our own faith story. So I have an assignment for us for the week ahead. Sometime this week, ask for prayers for yourself. It could be from your family, it could be from your small group, it could be from people, well, whatever. The point is to ask someone or someone to pray for you this week and to give them some indication of what you would like to be prayed for. Faith stories continue to happen when we hold each other fervently in prayer. And when we do that, we stubbornly persist in noticing how God is at work in our world, freeing us, leading us into a way of peace. It is what we do every week in worship. We take light from the Christ candle and we light a peace candle, reminding us that we are called to be peacemakers in this world and that peace is possible. That is a song of hope and the reality of the world in which we live. May it be so for us.